Start off talking about raccoons. How was your raccoons?
That was a good introduction. I've finally seen a raccoon. So over the moon. And I'll tell you why it's important to me, Richard. Here's a story from my youth. When I was 5, I went to Miami on holiday and did a little tour around. And
Hmm.
I was bought a teddy bear. And I called that teddy bear Squirrel. And that squirrel was a raccoon. And I didn't figure it out till about 5 years later.
I was going to
That
say 5 years ago.
well, no, I'm a bit smarter than that, I like to think. Uh, but yeah, so for years and years, I walked around with this little teddy bear as a child, calling it Squirrel, and it was a raccoon. But I'd never actually seen one in the wild, and last week I did.
Very good.
So very
Did you call it
happy.
squirrel?
I called it Squirrel, and it didn't come over. It ran the other way.
How
I
rude.
mean, there was a massive alligator sat next to it, so it could have been that scared it.
What did
But
you call that?
whatever he wanted to be called. That's very polite to the big alligator.
Bye.
Yeah, just throw in some food and leave very quickly. But no, had a lovely few days away in New Orleans, and yeah, very hot, 31 degrees. Came home into flash flooding, thunderstorms, lightning. Took
Welcome back.
4.5 hours to do a hour 45 journey, and yeah, great to be back. It's rained ever since.
Yes. Can you go away again, please?
I might jump on another plane soon, go somewhere warm again. I
Yes,
quite
that'd be
liked it.
great.
It's quite a very different vibe of a city to a lot of the other American cities.
Mm.
A bit more laid back and casual, but so much fried food.
Yeah.
Even I got to the point in one restaurant where I just pushed it to one side and just went, I can't do any more.
No. You
No,
didn't go down the Mr. Creosote Man route.
no, not quite. But
What a
everything's right. I had
not even a wafer thin mint.
not even a wafer thin mint at that point. I was done. But they have some strange combinations. It's like brunch on the first day. I had French toast with a hot honey sauce with strawberries with fried chicken on it.
Yeah, they do that, don't they? Chicken and
Yeah, it kind of makes sense up to a
syrup.
layer. And then it's just like, just shove some fried chicken on top. So,
Oh,
but hey, it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot.
good.
It's very weird, actually. You walk down the main Bourbon Street and it's literally bar after bar just with live music coming at you from every angle. It's like you've probably never been anywhere where you've got so many live bands playing in such a short distance of
Mm,
space, sort of thing. So yeah,
decent music as well, I should think.
yeah.
Blues.
So all good. Some blues,
Yeah.
some rock, some weird stuff. But yeah, anyway, we're back and we're talking about data. So yeah, back into it.
Back on it.
How's things? How's things with you, anyway? Just quickly.
Yeah, busy. Busy. Good busy. Fighting with various things and various spreadsheets.
The data world never stops.
No,
So
definitely doesn't. Definitely doesn't.
I'll
So, on that topical note, talk to me about Uber and
Uber.
other
Yeah,
data heavy centric organizations.
we've touched on a few things about what is data and stuff like that previously. We talked about cars and football league tables and various other bits. And just I was just thinking the other week, one of the things that people don't really realise is that, excuse me, the a lot of the companies they cite as like digital transformation companies aren't. They're just companies that have learned how to use data really efficiently and effectively. Uh, and the two examples I usually go to are Uber and Netflix. And loads of people give them as examples of this data of digital transformation, but I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I think it's the efficient transfer of data effectively between a buyer and seller that's made their model work.
Mm.
And so if you think about Uber, you've obviously got an app on your phone. You stand there, you put in some data of, I'm stood in this location, I want to go to this location. That goes through their process and goes to a seller who's sitting in their car who can pick that up and go, I'm happy to take that person to that place. And this is how much it's going to cost. And that data goes straight back to me. and then I get a map of where that car is. It tells me how long it will be, where it is on the route, and exactly the price I'll pay for the journey. It tells me who my driver is, what star rating he's got, and other information. You get there, you get out, you hit whether you want to give a tip or not, you walk away, it's all paid for. And you kind of compare that to the process of getting a taxi. And if you're old like us, you'll remember obviously having to phone the taxi company saying, be here at 7. And then at 5 to 7, you start poking through the curtains, seeing if they've arrived yet. At 10 past 7, you phone the
normal
taxi
evening for you, yeah.
10 past 7, you phone the taxi company and they tell you it's just around the corner or it's 2 minutes away, and you wait another 10 minutes.
You give up. And then
you give up. Or like many people, you have to ask the taxi driver to stop at a cash point on the way in so you've got money to pay for it. It's actually, taxis taking credit cards and payment cards is relatively new in most places and doesn't happen everywhere. So there's a huge amount of efficiency with digital and with data, and that just kind of shows that it's making the process more efficient, but it's through that efficient transfer of data and digitizing that data that process happens quite quickly and smoothly. And if you think about Uber as a company, they don't really need to get involved in that transaction apart from providing the platform that allows the buyer and the seller to meet. And likewise with Netflix, yes, we all used to love jumping in a car, driving to Blockbuster, having a walk around Blockbuster, seeing if they've got the movie you want, realising they haven't, and so picking an Arnold Schwarzenegger film from 1984 or something like that, a bag of popcorn, going home and watching it, and then realising you've got to get up at 8 in the morning to take it back to Blockbuster the following day.
Or you try and post it through the letterbox, and you can't fit it in because it's too rammed.
Yeah. And then you get a fine for it. But obviously Netflix kind of started in the world of, we'll send you all a DVD out. And again, the DVD is data. It's data on a disc that is showing you a movie. That then transformed into a more efficient way of doing that isn't to post the data to you, it's to send the data over the internet to you. And obviously, again, that's grown into something quite massive. But when you go on Netflix, you don't necessarily open Netflix and think about data transfer and data efficiency. It's what TV program do I want to watch? And so I'm just thinking there were two really good examples of where we use data a lot without ever contemplating that it's data or thinking about it or kind of the process that sits behind it. And I think they're quite useful examples for businesses to think about. So for me, it's the thing that I bang on about a lot is data efficiency, but it's that transfer of data kind of between a buyer and a seller with a marketplace in the middle doing the transaction for you that actually makes it work.
It's like Just Eat, isn't it, as well? Even more so, I think. I would argue that pieces like Deliveroo and Just Eat, they're even more hands-off in as much that they are literally just a platform. They ingest a request. I'm doing them a disservice, but they're a conduit for a user to buy services from a seller, a bit like Amazon. But they're not even fulfilling it. They technically are. They kind of just they send out branded packaging and boxes and stuff, and then that happens. So they are literally taking a chunk out of that process, being paid for it, and most of the time they're just pretty much, operationally they're hands off. Obviously, there's a heck of a lot going on behind the scenes, but they are using the same concept, aren't they? They're ingesting information, passing that information on, technically.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Uber as well. Like you said, it's and it's then how do you use that? Then they are using it to recommend services and send you offers. And same with Netflix. Yes, they are more in the world now of producing their own content as well. So that's again, are they doing it themselves? Probably not. But you know what I mean? They're kind of just this umbrella, labeling it under their own banner. But they are there, like you say, they are hosting all this stuff, passing people's information backward, passing the information, the data backwards and forwards. This person wants to watch this. Okay, noted. This person has watched this. They liked it, so then that's basically recommend something else to them. And it's the same with Amazon. It's the same with it. All of them are incredibly data heavy, but they use it most of the time very efficiently.
Yeah, and what they've done is made you as a person, let's call it more efficient, let's not say lazy, more efficient as a person. That, like we said, you're not now phoning taxi companies and waiting, or in London walking down the street waving your arm hoping one turns up. You know
Yeah, anyway,
exactly when they're
I,
coming.
I, I like doing that.
You like doing that. You're one of those. Netflix, you're not going to Blockbuster anymore. You're not having that experience. And then, as you said,
Can't.
Just Eat and Uber, you're not having to drive to the local takeout or anything. You're not having to go and collect your own food anymore. That's all delivered to you. So there's an element of I'm going to be polite and say making people more efficient with their time, but using the data in a more efficient way and transferring that data efficiently, because ultimately, if that transfer of data wasn't efficient, the service wouldn't work. Anyway,
No,
you wouldn't sit and watch Netflix as much as you did if you downloaded it in 5-minute chunks and you had to wait 10 minutes in between each 5-minute chunk of movie being downloaded to you, sort of thing. So, but yeah.
I can imagine what you would break off and throw across the room if that started happening.
Yeah, apparently I've got a rage issue. But only with the car. Only with the car. That just annoyed me. It only annoyed me because it was popping open so often, and then the one time I wanted it to pop open, it locked itself shut, and that annoyed
That's
me.
called karma. That's because
But
you were looking at other cars and you were sat there just to wind it up.
I know, but it has to learn. But, but yeah, I think the point before we descend into chaos again, the point is that a lot of businesses, I don't think, look at that transfer of data between seeing themselves as the seller or the platform that connects the buyer and the seller and transferring that data efficiently. And I think a lot of the time it's because you're, particularly software, you're thinking about buying software based on kind of how flashy it looks and what buttons it's got. You're not necessarily thinking, what data do we need to collect? How does it need to get from A to B? How do we need to transfer it? And obviously, a lot of the work you do is around kind of extracting that data from systems and then pulling it together into something usable and making that efficient. But actually, if they brought you in when they were procuring the system in the first place, so they knew exactly what data they were collecting, how they were going to use it, and then what the end result was, they'd probably end up in a much better position initially. But too often it's an afterthought, isn't it?
Well, it is. Data is always the last thing that people think about, and quite often there'll be a load of, because not all systems make it very easy to get data out of them either. Some you have to, you might have to pay for a license, or you might have to pay for a subscription, uplift what you're already paying them. Some of them may not even have API access or scheduled exports and things like that. So that adds another complete layer of unnecessary complexity that might not necessarily, that could have been avoided potentially if someone had looked at it and gone, well, how are you going to get it out? How are you going to get anything out of it?
Yeah.
Because you can get data out of most systems one way or the other, but it's not necessarily always immediately obvious or immediately straightforward. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's that whole awareness as to where data in one way or another. I put a post out today completely similar to this, but not on this topic because we only just spoke about it. But it's like, if you think about all the applications and systems and in your business and personal life, we've spoken about this before, but how much of it relies on and produces some sort of data. I had this conversation a number of years ago at a networking event, and someone said, "What do you do?" So I explained, "Oh, I haven't got any data in my business." I'm like, And it turned into a 20-minute discussion, should we say?
You pinning them against the wall.
No. I kind of was like, okay, well, this is. I was like, well, why do you make you think that you haven't got any? And they were like, oh, well, I don't have any of those fancy systems replications. And I was like, what do you use? Email? Yeah. Well, then you're using data.
Yeah.
You got a mobile? Do you take bookings? Have you got do you use Excel? Excel or Word or anything like that? Well, yeah, of course I do. And you're producing and using data. Do you make, there's this whole What you can connect to Outlook or something and get information off that. Yeah, it's all that just complete refusal that there was anything. I don't have any of those fancy applications or systems. No, but I bet you do have systems and applications that are used in your business. And if you do, you are of any kind, any description, you're producing data.
Yeah, I've had the same conversation many years ago with someone who said something very similar to that, and I was like, I'm connected to you on Facebook. You're uploading pictures every single day. It's like, what do you think they are? It's like it's all data, but it's that whole thing, isn't it? That they see data as this sciencey, techie thing in the background, but actually, it's the key reason you're buying software of any sort is to produce or to input data into to give you information back out of. And I don't think enough people fully understand that that is what they're doing, and B, when you're looking at software, they're not thinking what data is it, what are we going to do with it. They're looking, oh, that's a nice button. Oh, oh, it's blue.
Well, it's again though, isn't it? Is it? I wouldn't necessarily wouldn't necessarily point a finger at. I think it's the date. It's the potentially word this delicately, but it's potentially a good chunk of the blame falls on the data world for making it a bit opaque. In as much that it is confusing and it's complicating and it's and just rather than and then the wider issue here is like, well, if you've got that platform, then maybe you need another system on top of that to be able to manage that properly. If you've got all this, okay, well, how about having this bolt on or buying this application? I mean, if you go into App Store or Microsoft Outlook and then Office 365 and things like that, and then you're in Teams and you go looking at the app bolt-ons, and then there's another app bolt-on and there's something else to do something else, which is great because the digital transformation piece, they've been able to automate and move into that world. But at what point are you 5, 6, 7, 8 platforms deep and you're going, I can't really get a finger on what's happening because it's become a little bit too murky, and that's not necessarily. I don't know. It's difficult. I wouldn't apportion blame in any of that. I think it's just the way the world's gone. But I think you have to stop, as you said. You have to, at the first point that you're rolling in a system, think, what do we want to get anything out of this? From an information perspective, do we want to monitor, measure, and then capture that, and then go, okay, well then what if we bought in another system, which there's systems for everything, and a lot of them are really, really good, but how do you then go, okay, if I to be able to retrofit a reporting system on a number of things, it can be done, but it's not going to be. You're going to need to take the time to work through and work out where all these bits fit together. And I think that's the interesting part. And it's the same with in your personal life. You've got applications for absolutely everything. But at what point do you look at your phone and you go, I don't even know where anything is. I can't find anything. And you give up trying to find it, so you just scroll and search because you can't find it because you got so many. Yeah? And I don't even put games and stuff on my phone, so I literally, a lot of it is work stuff or it's other applications that I use. And I can't find. I don't even know where half this stuff is.
I'm just muting a minute because the dog's having a
Postman.
I don't even know who that is. It's just decided to have a bark. But yeah, no, and I think on that, so going back to the systems, I think there's some very good ones in the sense that I quite like Xero as a finance system. But I think before you even start, you have to almost look at the ecosystem around Xero. Xero was designed to have other systems plugged into it. And I think you have to be aware that if you're trying to do stuff and get really detailed information out the back of the system, then it's 0 plus something else that is the answer. It's not just looking at 0 as a standalone system. You have to understand that a lot of what we do today in digital and IT is around ecosystem of tools. And actually, even if you think back to Microsoft 10 years ago, it was very much Microsoft or nothing. It didn't integrate with stuff. It didn't play nicely with anything. And I think that's probably the biggest change they've made over the last decade or so, is there's now more tools that Microsoft plays nicely with and will integrate with, and they'll promote others. But yeah, I think if you're thinking data is something you don't do, it's someone else's job, I don't think it's helped by the fact we call people things like data scientists, because that immediately puts you in a bracket of one that takes almost like the layperson away from data as it.
Well, that's the whole mystique, opaque nature of communicating the world, isn't it? And it's like things like data lake in clouds. You immediately think, well, I don't have. Where is it then? I don't have control of it. And it's like that, data mesh and data this, and you're going, well, what, that's where I have a bit of a problem with the way that the industry communicates what is possible. Yes, as we said before, what happens behind the scenes can get complex, but you don't need to explain. Netflix doesn't explain all the data packets and information it sends backwards and forwards, and the content stream rate and everything that it's plonking through, and all the bits that it does. To be able to do this, you have to set up a data ingestion pipeline from your TV up to the our data mesh hub in the cloud that we will then allow you access through a multi TCP portal that enables you to query the data. And you're like, you go, what the fuck? Oh no.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll put
but you would go, why? What the hell?
Yeah.
If you Amazon, I want to go to Amazon, you go, right, you have to submit your credentials to our single sign-on application and confirm that it's okay. They don't go through all that and explain to you exactly end to end what's going to happen. So why communicate that like that and that's kind of my, I don't know, it's my beef about what it is.
You can imagine the sign up to Netflix, can't you, of someone asking for their enterprise architecture diagram to come through before they'll sign up to watch a movie. But it is kind of that. It's that thing, though, isn't it? It's you as an end user, or you as a business, or you as a business owner, whatever, just wants to know. Well, you just point the thing at the screen and click OK, your movie will play. That's what you want to know from a data perspective. Yes, we know there's technical stuff you have to do behind it. And there's some clever work, but yeah, boiling it down almost to the most simple process. And I suppose in a way you can look at like the original iPods and stuff that basically just had a round wheel and a button in the middle. And they were the only controls you had on it. And it's literally like, yes, there's huge amounts of complexity sitting behind that, but you as the end user just pushes that button there or spins it to move to the next song. And that's all you need to know.
And that's kind of my beef, I suppose. It's like it's very good at almost over-explaining technical complexity, but from an end-user perspective, if you're there was a statistics that I've seen that 80% of projects fail, and there's a projection that so many of this won't work, and it's like, well, we don't do ourselves any favors, realistically. I know you can't oversimplify everything. If you're talking to a client and you're going, oh, it's a piece of piss, we'll just plug this in and then we'll be off. No, because then you're setting the bar expectations ridiculously high. But when you're generally communicating and labeling and naming and stuff, why make it so complicated? That's the point where it becomes. I would always argue and try and simplify the process. Can you do this? Yes. Would you like me to explain how we do it? No. Fine. And then it's like. If you do, fine, we'll document it, we'll capture it, we'll produce it so you can see what's happening. But up front, do you want me to spiel out a 20-minute explanation with a 15-page PowerPoint document that is still quite high level, but contains jargon and technical speak, and that is going to go, you're going to go, I don't even know what half of that stuff means. And it's like, so why What was the point?
And don't mention that 80% stat on LinkedIn, by the way, because I see multiple arguments every single day about people arguing about what it is, what it means, who made it up. Mine's 95% in my book, and people hate me for it. But I found one stat that said 95% of them don't achieve everything they set out to achieve, and it's like, well, I can quite believe that because.
Well, I would argue actually that endpoint should keep moving anyway, so you should never stop. I always argue that data projects should never have a 100% completion rate. Tasks, yes.
Yeah.
Deployment, yes. But you should always keep evolving and pushing forward.
Yeah,
So
and to your point on the wording, I don't know if I've told you this one before, but years ago at Peterborough, the networks manager put an internal comms message out, and it was something like server MXM PCC 0014 is unavailable at the weekend. And I was just like, what are you on about? And he went, well, email's down. I was like, why can't you just write email is down? Because no one understands what. But he's like, yeah, but it's that particular server that's going to be down. It's like, no one cares which server is down. They want to know what they can't do. And it's like, just put a message out that says email between 9 and 5 on Sunday isn't available. Done.
It's like Amazon, right? You put stuff
in the technical.
Yeah, so you put it in the back, you put your basket and you leave, and you get a message saying your basket is incomplete or whatever. Instead of saying that, you could say, well, order item ID number ZX432 is only 0.45783% complete. Would you like to complete the remaining 0.5? I have got the percentages completely wrong way around. But would you like to fulfill the whole entire process and complete order item? You go, what?
Yeah. And then once submitted, it will get absorbed into our data lake.
Our master data lake and allocated a completion ID, and we estimate that it will be fulfilled within 78% of our required KPI time.
And again, it comes back to the efficiency, doesn't it? I always bang on about efficiency, and it's like even the wording you use, you can be efficient in how you word it to a customer. You don't need to go into massive amounts of technical detail. And I'm working on some projects at the moment where we've brought an element of it in towards the end, and the customers actually turned around and went, if you'd have presented this day one, we'd already said yes. And it wasn't designed in the way to do that, but you're almost like, okay, that makes sense now because I know what your problem actually was with the whole project, which bits you didn't understand. And once I could show you that bit and how it worked, you were absolutely fine with it. And yeah, that was an MDM kind of data matching project. But yeah, the complexities that sat behind it, they almost didn't care about and how it did the stuff. It just wanted to know, will it give me a better result than how I've tried to do it previously? And why will it? And once you could explain that, they just went, oh yeah, that's fine then. Kind of off you go, crack on. So yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we don't help ourselves, but I do think there's a lot of ways that, as people like the general layperson thinks about things without realizing what they're doing is data or data flows or data efficiency. And they perhaps don't need to, but have a level of understanding. I think that every time you're doing this, every time you're using AI, every time you're doing that, there's an element of data processing or data movement happening behind the scenes to make that happen for you.
There's a whole conflict. There's a whole discussion and debate. Yeah, there's a whole debate about saying, be mindful about what you're putting into things like ChatGPT, because essentially that's going up and stored somewhere in a model. That if you start putting sensitive stuff in there or metrics or your performance statistics, then you have to be mindful that actually that's going somewhere, and everyone is then benefiting from the fact that you've uploaded that.
Yeah.
So be careful with that.
I write Hashru is great every 15 minutes and upload it into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so eventually.
Please also say, please can you please assume the identity of my petrol cap and explain to me why you will not behave.
Although I did ask you about my book, Richard, and you'll be pleased to know it said we don't know that one. I can't remember which one I was chatting to. It wasn't ChatGPT, it was one.
He didn't come back and say, is this the one we helped you with, Mr. Godfrey?
No, I said, are you aware of this book? And it came back with something like, no, we're only aware of popular books. It wasn't quite that wording, but it wasn't far off that. And I
Did
was
you say
like,
that? Did you find across the room at the moment?
yeah, I was like, replied back, going, well, actually, I am the author of this book. And they're like, oh, good. Would you like to explain it to me? I'm like, no, I would not now. You've insulted me. But I get your point. You can't be trained on every single book on Amazon.
Getting beefed by ChatGPT.
Yeah. So I still say please and thank you, but we've had words.
Brilliant. Right,
So,
I need to dash.
Yeah, no worries. We'll do a short one this week. And yeah, hopefully that was a little bit of information for people. And we should chat again in a couple of weeks, Richard. And see if you can not swear in the next one, so I'd have to put an adult.
I did quite well. I can't promise anything.
I need to.
Yeah.
So, cool. Right, mate, I'll speak to you soon.
See you later. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.